Folks, this is a special episode. I'm going to share a quick story with you. Another podcast, not the one that I formerly hosted, known as Mama's Boys, which was all about individuals that were too close with their moms and really probably should move out of their house. It was another podcast that I first heard this, Eric, that a bonus episode many moons ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, if one was to label a podcast episode a bonus, it essentially meant it was a throwaway, and they didn't want to label it as part of their main structure, so they don't want to numerically label it. And they put it as a bonus to try and differentiate it, and so people think, oh, bonus, that's something good, but in reality, it was their worst material. And I'm here today to say that we're following in that fine tradition.
Yeah, I think the way I would do that is I would just dub over any instance where I said it was episode with the number. If it you decide after the fact,
right?
Hey, this is episode 6. We're talking about volume, and then when you actually listen to it, because it went so bad, you're like, hey, this is episode bonus, and we're talking about volume, and no one would ever have any idea. Funny thing that you brought up Mama's Boys.
Shoot.
My mama got me this lovely advent calendar with the chocolate to eat for every day of Christmas. And just to show and prove for all the haters that I don't have an eating disorder.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, it's also, I'm in the future here in New Zealand, which is another benefit to being in this part of the world. It is the 22nd of December. Omar, what day is it for you?
21st.
You know what I can tell you?
What?
The future's bright. Here on the 22nd, not only is the future bright, but also I've got chocolate in this window, and they got a little poem. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings and turned with a jerk.
I just heard jerk. That's
yeah, clean and jerk, referencing Santa Claus in his Olympic weightlifting days. And I'm going to eat this chocolate on camera. For those with a fetish, good for you. Yep. And for those who think I have an eating disorder, proving you that I don't, although I may or may not vomit off camera. So anyway, what were you saying?
Yeah, this was not at all carefully orchestrated. This was completely spontaneous. And we're totally not trying to tap into the cultural zeitgeist known as mukbangs to attempt to broaden our demographic, not to be confused with other bangs that you might be watching online. This one is just a clean, wholesome episode. If you've made it this far,
a holiday episode, if you will.
A happy holiday episode.
And Omar, remember you had specifically committed towards doing something traditional for other cultures because you didn't want to just represent Christmas, so go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to say to everyone that worships, the original intention of this day coming up for the holidays, we salute you. For those that want to remember the old gods, the immortal gods, the gods that were here before, time immemorial, that were forgotten, but are, those that know are in the know. I'm talking beyond ancient Sumeria, okay? I'm talking beyond the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was merely just the heralding of the third age of this world. I'm talking cycles, Eric. I'm talking beyond space and time. For those that celebrate the real traditions that got buried over time and forgotten, and a thoughtful soul to solitude retires. We're here for you. So it's not just, it's a pan celebration of not just, okay, we say Christmas. Okay, we could say that. And we could say the other ones. There's, of course, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. There's numerous ones to celebrate, and I think that's fantastic. But I just want to give a shout out to those that are the first, the originators, the progenitors, beyond space and time, beyond the void.
See, at first I thought you were going to go with winter solstice and talk about how Christmas probably wasn't actually the birth of Christ, but was kind of a backyard deal with, hey, let's get the pagans on board, and then we're going to give a shout out to Paimon. But it sounds like you actually went and Lovecraftian, and talked about the others from beyond.
Yes, sir.
So shout out Sleeping Cthulhu. Oh, and also those with a Jewish background. Happy Hanukkah.
Yep.
And anything else you might celebrate, or anything you worship and fear to hopefully have some semblance of your soul remaining in the new year, because 2020. Something about a Mayan calendar, something about a conspiracy. We're all going to die, but not if you worship Paimon.
Yeah.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Hey, and one final thing. If you made it this far, which some people say they love the banter. Those are mainly Eric. Don't
What?
do it.
What? Just a carrot.
Just a carrot. What? You're intimidated by
I'm
carrots?
just having the rest of my breakfast. I mean, I can't just sit here and have chocolate for breakfast and feel fine about myself. I got to cancel out with a carrot.
Right. Yeah.
It's totally normal, right? And
so
the way it works.
those that are not aware of what's going on just by video, I'm going to give you, for the audio only listeners, Eric ate a chocolate and then he panicked and grabbed a carrot immediately after. And now he's attempting to justify it. I think he's already calculating in his head the additional steps he's going to need to take for the day. Oh, and then an apple.
I might have chose the noisiest
Oh, yeah.
breakfast possible.
So,
If I only had like pop chips or popcorn in addition to a carrot and an apple, would be good.
brother, this is Iron Culture ASMR, and I hope everyone is enjoying it. Before I do have to give one more shout out to a particular holiday. Before I do that, if you made it to the first 5 minutes and you're like, wow, that's a lot of banter, you must be new here. This is the bonus episode of Iron Culture, which is just an opportunity for us to kick back, relax. Eric has tons of poisonality, and what I love, and I'm going to talk about this more, is that you've been able to show it off. Because look, individuals might say like, wow, like he's a real professional. And you know what? He is. But there's a fun side to Eric that obviously, because he wants to be taken seriously, and as he should, he's a researcher. He's publishing a lot of important information. He's trying to contribute to academia as well as to, social media in the form of great photos. Eric, you really have improved in 2019, your photos, and we'll talk about that. But there's so much more to Eric than that. So it's been a great way for us to showcase some poisonality, some content, as they say. Give a lot of, am I using the right word here, Eric? Value?
I would say that's probably the most authentic word to use in this situation. Yeah. I feel like you're being pretty real.
I'm being vulnerable by opening up about...
There it is.
Yeah. Got him. And then lastly, for the, I want to say, other holidays, for the Orthodox brothers and sisters that celebrated Gregorian calendar on the 7th. They kept the OGs. Shout out to you. So we're giving all the shout outs, but yes.
The original Gregorians, OGs.
Yep. Gregorian chants. I actually love Gregorian. If you listen to some of that stuff and then they, kind of utilize that for some sci-fi games or movies and so forth. Ominous sounding. Phantom Menace episode 1. Come on, Eric.
Hey, I pretty much only recognize the episode 4, 5, and 6, but that's okay.
Yeah. Now, I could go off on a tangent, and we both can, but I'm going to actually, this is crazy. Why am I the one that's attempting to steer back on topic? It's like opposite role? Did I put on the Eric hat today?
Listen, I hope that if this is your first time listening to Iron Culture, you did not choose our bonus episode. Let me just say that. Because you're going to have a misconception about what we're about.
Yeah.
Me making up for sociopathy with eating food on camera. Omar steering us back on track. Discussing nothing of interest except perhaps ancient religions.
Yep.
Is it that different? I mean,
no.
It's kind of like we're having an intro to nothing for like 20 minutes. That's basically what we're doing.
Yeah, it's so there is that mild irreverence that we have, and I think that's just part of who we are. And as someone said, I actually wanted to almost read a few of the reviews where someone said, what do you call it? I like how the hosts dump on the guests in the intro every single time. We're just like talking shit, but it's just so much fun. In this episode, what we are going to reflect on, and that's why it's more laid back, it's casual. So, if you're eating breakfast, if you're partaking with Eric, go right ahead. If you're just kicking it, maybe you finish a workout. If you are training, we cannot be held liable. So, like any great hero, we have faced our legal hurdles this year. We cannot be held personally liable if anyone laughs during this episode while lifting and the bar slips, behind them, something should happen. We are not held responsible.
Yeah, if it goes from a Valsalva to a Valsalva, that might be a problem.
Yeah.
But hopefully you're just doing curls. Yeah. Really the only exercise that matters.
Only sensible exercise is what I'd say, Eric. So this episode's going to be a reflection, 2019, a year in review. Some things that maybe we learned, maybe some things we forgot. There is the potential possibility we're not entering 2020 with the best version of ourselves, Eric. We actually may have regressed.
Well, I think I see it as a resensitization phase. That if we have regressed, it's only because we're setting up the best comeback ever for 2020.
Yeah, we dug our own hole. Everyone's like, you guys are doing great. Just keep doing what you're doing. And we said, excuse me, what? We shot our foot. We started digging our own grave. We're just going to rest there, hibernate like a bear for approximately 5 months, and then emerge out of it disheveled, beaten down, famished, and then we'll have a meteoric rise.
Yep, Phoenix rises,
Yeah.
and I'm sure having our bloody foot in a hole for 5 months will not cause an infection. We'll be able to get up just fine.
Yeah, and if something negative should happen in the end, I mentioned cycles at the beginning for a reason. Speaking of cycles, let's talk about training. Let's talk about training cycles. Eric, to reframe this correctly, the last frame of 2019, I saw you compete. So earlier on, and Eric told me to stop mentioning this, but I'm not going to, that I told him in 2011. So he asserts that I didn't see him in 2011 compete, and I know what I saw, and it was a whole lot of man muscle, and it was
What city?
impressive. Yeah,
What city was I in? What city was I in?
multiple. So the thing,
What's either of the two cities where I competed in 2011?
I got you, man. It was Colorado. So we
State.
yeah. So it was Denver.
And actually, one of the states that I did not compete in. There's two, actually.
Right. So
I'll give you a hint. They share a border.
right. Have you ever had a situation happen, Eric, where you're so mesmerized by a specific event that to recall it, everything kind of turns into a blur, and you were dazzled almost. It's like an epiphany. So let's go the Platonic cave, right? Where if I haven't been exposed to the sun, I've just been living in the cave my entire life, and then I emerge and I see, wow, that physique. And you ask me, where did I see that physique? The sun is blinding. The illumination of knowledge is blinding to me. I can't recall the trivial details. Oh, where was it? What day was it? What year was it? What place did I finish? I just remember the man hunk.
Did you fly home or drive home?
So again, that's one of the hazy minor details that I can't.
So now, to answer your original question, has this ever happened to me? No. I've never attended a bodybuilding show that made me forget the next and preceding 3 days of my life. So
Okay.
must have been a good one.
So there is a minor chance I was roofied after the event. I'm starting to realize that. With that being said, 2011 was a fantastic year, but I would argue, I have photos to reflect upon the physique. I'd argue, man, 2019 was an opportunity for me to see you at your finest form, not as they say Frieza Dragon Ball Z, your final form, but something that you love and you participate in. And it changed my perspective. So one of the reflections that I want to say was actually just a reflection upon what you did and being able to, in some small way, participate in it, but get a greater understanding of something I wasn't quite familiar with. And so I thank you for that.
Appreciate that. And I have basically 3 doors I can walk through right now. One is to compliment you on something to deflect from my uncomfortability with getting that compliment.
Yeah.
2 would be to make some ridiculous joke, which is very tempting, but I've been doing that for the last 20 minutes. Or 3 would then be to carry on with this conversation and actually have a discussion of semblance. And I know what the listeners want me to do. And this time I'm actually going to give them that Christmas gift. It's a Christmas miracle, folks. So, no, I think 2019 was a really cool year for me. For those who don't know, last time I competed, like Omar, I'm just going to say that he helped us get to this point. I did compete in 2011, regardless of who may not have attended. That was my last time, 8 years ago. And in the interim, I decided I would not compete until I was at a point where I had the right lifestyle for it, meaning not doing a PhD or a master's or transitioning to a new country. So anyway, yeah, it was a really, really cool return to the stage. And it was I think objectively, best physique I've ever brought. Subjectively, best contest prep experience I've ever had as far as getting to where I went, trying new things, incorporating the learning both qualitatively and quantitatively over the years. And it was also just a lot of fun. It was really cool to share with you, and other folks were able to make it out. And I traveled, man, all over the world while I was doing it. So it was very cool.
It was so. And that's why you've been a catalyst in ways for this fitness journey, for the overall iron culture. Doing this with you, increasing my appreciation of lifting, or let's say rediscovering some of the whys has been very important, but then also broadening the scope. And so to kind of reflect back on something for myself, I would say actually getting slightly more emotionally detached to the process has been important. And also being in other areas of my life, I'm very comfortable with uncertainty. But when it comes to lifting, where it's one of the things that I attempt to structure, because I actually think to make maximal progress, structuring things, it makes a lot of sense. For other areas, let's say music, improvisation, or a variety of other things, it might be more important. Spontaneity, you might enjoy. But when it comes certainly to training, having a structure is very important. But to see Eric, and actually that was part of the motivation for myself, to see you go through that process, to see you every week, we're doing a podcast, and my man is on, I heard the macros after in the Eric Trexler episode on metabolic adaptation, and he would come on every single week, and you couldn't even tell. Okay. I mean, one time he fell asleep for 8 minutes in one episode, but his mood was at an all-time high. No one was the wiser. I I actually saw you the day before the competition, the day after that entire phase, and I mean, besides obviously looking quite gaunt when you walked into that sushi restaurant, that was very tanned, very bronzed. Yeah.
Painted, if you will.
Yeah, painted bronze. Wonderful, majestic. Besides those things, the only other thing I noted about you was that you walked very slowly, because obviously, energy's pretty, it was. I thought at first it was a pimp mood, like you're just like walking down, like, yeah, man, I'm strut. Like, this is Sac, this is my hometown. I'm strutting back in. I'm like, oh no, he just has low calories.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's it's funny. I had a student who I had a number of students come out to New Zealand that I'm working with as their primary supervisor while they do their PhD, which is a really, really cool opportunity and a lot of fun getting to mentor folks in a similar area and try to help them get further in their career. One of them was here before I started my contest prep, but not much, not for a whole lot of time. And the other 3 came in the midst of it, like around February, March. I'd already been dieting for a couple months. And I had a conversation with the one who'd been here for longer. And she was like, you were very good at hiding the effects of contest prep, but not completely. And one thing she noticed was that I would come in for meetings during my contest prep, meet with someone, and then just disappear. Like once I'd actually fulfilled like the meeting. And she was like, normally you're so attentive and you're giving and you like make sure the person has gotten everything they need. But with contest prep, it seemed like you still had that everything. It was still high quality, but you hit a certain wall and you just disappeared. And I was like, yeah, what I was doing was I knew that I had a certain amount of interaction time. It was like this ticking clock before I would become an asshole. And I just needed to extricate myself from any situation so that I could only give positives. So yeah, I definitely timed my refeeds. I timed the meetings, and I thought about like, all right, I got 2 hours here before I turn into Hangry Man and get the hell out. Which it's funny she picked up on that. So it's there. Yeah. Just hide it as best you can,
Bro, I noticed the blink. So basically what you did, you pulled, there's a great film called The Third Man, and there's a character, Harry Lime. You sprinkled a little bit of magic of yourself. And so anyone, when they interact with you, it's peak Eric. But who is Eric really behind closed doors? And that, my friend, is another question for another time. But I noticed while we're doing our episodes, the blink also is the only other thing where it's like, as you said, it's amazing how these involuntary things, you're not thinking to yourself, I'm tired, I'm going to blink slower. They just happen, some of these cues. But to see you, Eric, go on that journey and for you to do it, not effortlessly, I'm not saying that, but to carry it with, to
try to not let it affect my life, even though it did require effort.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. Actually, inspired me where I was on a strength block, so I hit a all-time high bar PR, hit a low bench PR. Things were going great, and then I decided to use the word the cool kids use, pivot, because I had a little bit of a setback where a little knee situation, nothing terrible. But when I said the emotional detachment, one of the things that I reminded myself when it comes to the lifting journey for 2019 would be that I didn't enter this to be a bodybuilder, to be a competitive powerlifter, to be any one particular thing. The enjoyment, the act itself was enough for me to derive fulfillment. And I think there are different things that we do. We can be multifaceted, multi-layered individuals where lifting is a big part of my life. It's not the sum total of my life, where there's certain disciplines. And I'll just give a quick example. I think there's a potential degradation when it comes to lifting. We could be all about this life, but if it's the only thing that you do, what's the most amount of time you could probably sensibly train per week? Maybe 12 hours. I'm just making up this number. But past a certain
Hmm.
threshold, if you start spending more and more time in the gym, the quality of your work will go down, and actually it could have a detrimental impact on your gains. So there's a finite amount of time that you could dedicate. As opposed to something like, let's say, I brought up music for a reason. We've heard stories of the jazz musician Charlie Parker, where he'd practice 13, 14 hours. And it's something that the more you invest, actually, the more you get out of it. So it's just one of those things where it's hundreds and thousands upon thousands of hours. Um, Lifting, when I first started doing it, and it's you catch the bug, you see other people lifting heavy, or you see other people getting big, your goals expand, and that's normal. Like anything else, you said before, Eric, and I think it's very astute. We said humans kind of crave complexity, right? So you start off as a casual lifter, and then you want to go a little bit deeper, and that makes a lot of sense. But then I think there's a certain rigidity in particular identities that could be damning for the whole. And what I mean when I say that, if
Mm.
your identity, and I'm speaking for myself here, is, oh, I like to be strong, right? It's just something I enjoy, the adrenaline rush, the focus, the objective measures. It is something that I genuinely enjoy. But if that's the sum total of the satisfaction I derive from the gym, as soon as you remove that, so again, an injury, something might occur, well, then who are you? It's kind of sweeping the rug from underneath you. And where do you get that satisfaction from lifting? So, developing a more of an emotional detachment and then being comfortable in uncertainty with lifting was huge. And then when I saw it and I met up with you, I basically decided, and I don't think I vocalized this to you at the time, but after seeing you do the show, and also quite frankly, that's the first time I saw an individual, a natural individual in person that got into the condition that you got into. And I'm not, trust me, I'm not trying to ignite this natty or not or any of that BS debate. But Eric, I believe you and I trust you, and I know without a doubt that you are, indeed natural, and you follow all the things that you say that you do. So it's actually very inspirational to see you at that level of conditioning, and just to know that it's a possibility and that you did the damn
Mm.
thing and you did it so well. So I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? That's a really cool journey. And while I had the setback, I was kind of trying to, I was trying to pivot a few other ways. You saw me in Sacramento, where I'm like, all right, so I just hit a squat PR, I hit a bench PR. I'm a little banged up. Where do I go from here? And I kept trying to, rotate and move around it and see other ways that I could keep training and hit more PRs, but my body was getting a little bit more and more grizzled. And then I had that reflection, just thinking to myself, wait a second, why am I doing all these things? Why not? Another goal that I like is leaning down a bit. And from seeing you in that process, not that once again, oh, it was easy for Eric, therefore it'll be easy for me. I'm like, this is really cool. And actually, the asceticism that we both admire, you and myself, that we see and we respect that discipline, was something I'm like, you know what, let's go ahead and pursue it. So I think for myself, some of the reflections, 2019, a little bit more emotional detachment, because for us, Eric, we're lifters for life. It's not, motivate. It's not for us, we don't wake up and it's a Monday and we think to ourselves, damn, homie, it's going to be tough for me to get to the gym. It's almost like you got to peel it back a little bit. There was
Mm.
actually one particular event I'll share just quickly. In 2013, I attempted to deadlift 565 pounds. Sean was at the gym, and I remember, like, it's no quite like when people say, you need to train harder or this or that. It's like not. There's certain individuals where actually dialing back, you myself might be wise. I attempted to deadlift 565, and it's on an old computer. I'd have to find the footage. But I think Sean counted it. I got it, Eric, above my knee, and it was just stuck. Like it was stuck. And I held it there trying to grind the repetition up for 12 seconds. And then I fell
Mm.
backwards. Like that's actually what happened. Like I almost passed out and I fell backwards. It's like there was no quit. It's like, was that sensible? Not in the slightest. So reframing why you do things and what you need to do to get to your goal and taking a look at the long-term process have been a few of the nuggets for me, man. And so as I said, you were one of the catalysts.
Well, it's an honor to hear that, and I appreciate that. And I think, man, there's so much to discuss there. Like, there's so many inversions, and you'll see what I mean by that when I explain it. They go through in the mental gymnastics. I'll use us as a description, but I think a lot of people relate to this among lifters or ourselves who to stay as these lifelong lifters that you describe. I think sometimes I've talked to a few people who are maybe in a point in their life where they're struggling with that commitment, and I think it's easy to be like, yeah, that's just me. Like I'm always going to lift. And it almost sounds like some innate quality that I just woke up one day and I had. But I think the commitment to the iron if that it comes at the first forefront, if that's kind of the thing that you go, right, that's just me. I'm gonna stay in the gym. I'm gonna be lifting no matter what. That forces you down a pathway of these mental inversions that you have to do. So, for example, the most important aspect of that is loving lifting. However, that passion is what can also take you down the path where you lose objectivity, because you're so attached and you're so in love with lifting that your identity can very easily start seeping into that. And there's some degree that's good. There's some degree that's unavoidable. Identifying as a lifelong lifter, we just did that, right? But if the only intrinsic self-worth I have is tied up into that, then missing that squat, missing that deadlift, not hitting that bench or getting injured becomes an existential threat. It becomes a threat to who I am, my identity, whether I exist, whether I'm succeeding or not. And that's when you can start to do things that, ironically, because you're so in love with lifting, are more likely to prevent you from staying involved, because you might plateau, you might get hurt, you make a series of poor decisions over a number of years, and you might end up needing some kind of clinical intervention, either mental or physical. And so it's these mental gymnastics and inversions that we have to go through, where we have to stay in love with the iron, but we also have to have this objectivity. And if you can't get that, you get a coach, right? There's a lot of pathways and avenues to do that. I've had a few people, actually that's not true. It makes it sound like this is what people are saying online. People say, that's not true.
They didn't want you, bro. They didn't want you.
People don't care about my lifting career that much. They mostly just want to hear me talk about science.
Oh, they're talking about it, bro.
Oh, yes, they are. People are saying, who? Don't ask me. I don't know. I haven't seen it. But from what I hear from other people who are saying what other people are saying, people care. No. So there's I've heard from a small number of people over the years who go, you seem like you're probably best suited towards, and they, at a time someone said powerlifting, where they thought my physique was just crappy, and this was back when the standard was lower. And now more recently, it's like, oh, you're a pretty good bodybuilder. Why are you messing around with strength sport? Because you're clearly not strong. Which I think is probably the most accurate thing, given how much the standard's gone up in strength sport, and that I do have at least I look pretty decent. So anyway, the point is, a number of people have argued for specialization. Look, if you really want to be good at this, blah, 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 this is what you got to do. Why are you messing around? Like, do you really think a farmer's walk is going to help you develop your physique? Blah, blah, blah. And I think what people forget is that the undeniable piece that is going to get me my best progress is loving lifting and doing it consistently and moving the needle forward, not working on moving the needle forward an extra millimeter, and so one of those elements of mental gymnastics has always been my participation in strength sport and bodybuilding, because the all-consuming focus on one's physique can have a really, really dark side effect. I should say side effects, whether that's your relationship with food, getting really, really tied up in being super, super lean. I've seen people specialize in bodybuilding so much that it hurts their bodybuilding progress. The person who screwed around with reverse dieting over and over and over again realized for 2 years they tried to stay too lean and made no progress. Well, if they'd actually been maybe in a weight class restricted strength sport, their stage weight's 80 kilos and they eat up to the 93 kilo class, and that's their cutoff, and they focus on getting bigger and getting stronger and stronger. As a side effect, they'd be getting bigger. Is it optimal? No, but it might be more optimal than trying to maintain 8% body fat year round and getting consistently hurt and not sleeping well. So it's this kind of interesting inversion where, by participating in it's kind of like flying too close to the sun and getting burned, right? I love the sun. If the sun is lifting, and one of those expressions of it is bodybuilding, but I can't just constantly go towards it, or I'm going to get skin cancer, burn up, and fall to the earth. So I'm participating in strength sport as a way to nurture and foster that love and appreciation with the iron. Also diversify my happiness portfolio, so I have a lot of different ways to succeed. For example, just to make it really concrete, most powerlifters don't get many blocks where all three lifts are improving simultaneously. And kind of most good peaks are when you get 2 out of 3 of your lifts to go up and you can maintain on one, and it's awesome. Your total goes up. That's a great block. And sometimes, you're maintaining on two and one's going up, and hey, that's still great. Your total's going up. When I'm trying to improve all of the different disciplines of strongman, which is like, 16 different lifts from like 5 different categories of events, and I'm also trying to do the snatch and clean and jerk and the big three, and also doing enough accessory work so that I'm still making progress in terms of my global development. There's a number of ways to look at that. It's a huge programming challenge, which guess what? I love because I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
But B, it gives me a ton of opportunities to see success. And as someone who's been lifting more than 15 years now, that's such a valuable thing, because you do eventually get to a point, there's no way around it, where progressing in an objective manner in terms of lifting more load, doing more reps, getting bigger or getting leaner may not be possible anymore. And you have to really, really fall in love with that process. So I'm milking that progressive overload that's left by doing this. And I think that's one of those examples of mental gymnastics for me that keeps me absolutely in love with it.
Yeah.
And I've been, that's one thing. I look back at 2019 and I've found a way to love the iron the entire time. And it's been fantastic. Like even when I'm starving, lethargic, tired, really, really lean, not sleeping through the night, and just wanting the diet to be over, I'll go to the gym and I'll be like, man, I just can't believe this is my physique. I've done like this is a pretty body of work I'm proud of, and I can't believe I'm this shredded. That's awesome. Man, I hate being this shredded, but man, it looks great. I find something.
Yeah.
My lifts are going down, but hey, I got that. And then, hey, man, I'm not shredded anymore. Like, geez, I've gained a lot of body fat since me being shredded. But hey, I just hit a 100-kilo axle clean and jerk. Like this is the second time I've ever done it. And now I'm approaching my barbell numbers. So I think that has created a lot of reflection opportunities for me, and just finding that if there's one driving force, the thing that's going to make your training as close to optimal as it can be, is it's finding a way to be in love with your pursuit more often than not. And I think that commitment might take a lot of different forms, but it's a huge difference from being quote unquote motivated. It's that commitment. It's that first step is going, right, I'm always going to lift. It's just what I do. It's a part of who I am. It's not all of what I am. And therefore, I'm going to find a way to keep that commitment and keep the coals hot. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what I look back on for 2019.
So many chicken McNuggets I heard there, Eric. Too many. I mean, I wish you had some chicken McNuggets so we could just get this mukbang dash ASMR. We're slamming.
I've got an apple.
Oh, hey, there we go. We're more relevant than ever before. I've often heard it said that we're ahead of the curve but behind the times, and I think that's fairly apt when it comes to us, what we're trying to do here overall iron culture. I'm going to put forth something at the very end of what I'm going to say, and I'm curious if you're going to agree or not. But to start, what you said about lifting for a while, I think there's a disparity, and depending upon who watches or who listens, they're going to take away different things. Where an individual who's only been lifting for a few years, some of the things that you spoke about might not yet resonate. I heard everything you said, Eric, and I think to myself, on point, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I hear you on this. I completely get the idea. The progression where you want that novelty to try and inspire. Oh, wait a second. Okay, this is another objective way that I'm improving because I'm trying to do something new. But what I would put forth, I think, with some lifters that are beginners, intermediates, where their identity, I'm a strength lifter, like I'm a power lifter, as an example. You don't
good old strength lifters.
Yeah, those good old strength brothers. Because why I say that, Eric, is because I one time said whatever in a video, I said I do powerlifting, and someone's like, you never competed, you're not a powerlifter. I'm like, all right, so I like to get stronger in the big 3 movements, which are in powerlifting in and of itself, but I've never competed in powerlifting, so let's call it strength lifting. I love it. Yeah, and they're like, oh, okay, fair enough. It's like you almost came into my little tribe, and I got offended, so I had to get really upset.
You can stay in the ghetto of my city, but nowhere else.
Yeah.
I love that. That's also would appease some of the kinetics nerds who are like, well, power is actually not maximized with the power lifts.
Weightlifting and powerlifting, how the two should actually be reversed. But that's another conversation. Right. And I actually do think that's true. But, what I was going to say.
Yeah, you go ahead.
What I was going to say is that I think some individuals are attached to progress, not to powerlifting, meaning it's addicting to get better and better. So you become new, you start powerlifting, maybe you're a normal gym bro or gym broette, and you start doing the bench press and you start periodizing your training, and you go from 225 pounds to 315 in 2 years. Like, holy smokes, man, I was stuck at this weight for a long period of time. Now, through periodizing, focusing on strength, I've gotten so much better at it. Same idea with the squat, the deadlift, as we tend to see with individuals that focus on it. They make monumental improvements, but I think they get addicted to the improvement, and it's not necessarily strength is an expression of that improvement, but the actual act of doing powerlifting, they might feel like they like it, but as soon as they stop making progress, are you about that life? I mean, there are individuals that train at Fortis. Paul is one of them. Shout out to Paul. Paul's in his 50s, and he's been actually so he's been powerlifting before it's cool. He's been powerlifting when Westside was a thing, when there's gear lifting, and he'll just keep doing it because he loves to lift, and he loves to lift heavy, and he's nowhere near as strong as where he was. I think he peaked in his early 40s, which is pretty cool, echoing what you said, Eric, about, being a lifelong lifter, but now he's facing that gradual decline, but the process he enjoys. And so I think individuals have to answer the question of why they lift, which is really kind of what we're talking about overall. And two things, and then I'm going to put forth the notion, and I'm curious if you agree or not. Chip Conrad would actually be someone else who is a minor catalyst. He wrote that book, which, don't worry, Eric, we're going to sue him because I know what's coming up for you, my friend. It's like, that book doesn't exist. No, what? Who? Are you useful? I've never heard of that book in my life.
No, I mean, we bought the website for him, so I mean,
we own.
It's okay.
Yeah, we own.
We own him basically.
Yeah.
We own his brand, which is what all the Chip Conrad is anyway. So, yeah.
Chip is an individual. Once again, he is that voice crying out in the wilderness that myself and Eric, we hear him talk and we're nodding in agreement. If you're a new lifter and he's talking about the concept of play, what's so interesting about him, he's the genuine article. It's kind of like a punk individual, so a punk band, or the punk ethos, or what they call straight edge, or being a straight razor, is something that if you see it, you can identify it and you know it. But when people try and imitate it, so it's like, oh, that's like, I want to be punky. It's like, well, you're actually not doing that. You're merely imitating the form of what you perceive to be the actual thing. Chip's the real deal. And so when they'll say the concept of play, so incorporating play, I read his book, Are You Useful? Shout out once again, check it out on Amazon. I really enjoyed the book. He means it. As he talks about lifelong lifting, or what we're trying to do. And one of the notions he put forth that I think ultimately, if we're trying to derive meaning in lifting, would be helping out a community or a tribe. Because unlike other artistic disciplines, and this is the notion I'm going to put forth, Eric, and I'm curious your thoughts on it. So again, music, literature, movies. I can watch a movie every single day, and I'm just deriving and drawing. I can study film, and there's a lot that goes into it. Lifting, same idea. You can learn about lifting, you can do the damn thing, but there's only so much in the act that you can do before you get fatigued, before you have a negative return. But the next level to derive meaning and personal fulfillment actually should extend, in my opinion, beyond yourself. And so towards helping others or sharing that information, I think will instill a greater sense of purpose, meaning, and actually have you more committed to it overall. And I've noticed there are those lifters, and I'm thankful when I started at the University of Windsor, who were lifting longer than me, that took me underneath their wing for there's no benefit. We had John Berardi on another episode where a really good trainer, a really good lifter took him under his wing. It wasn't like, oh man, like I'm going to take you under my wing and it's really going to benefit me. Like I'm whatever, in some calculated way. It's like, no, you know what? I see myself in you or where you are. I want to kind of give back. And through you rediscovering your passion, it kind of reignites my passion. It reminds me of why I do what I do. But deriving greater meaning from a journey that is merely outside of merely your own, I think is very important. And one of the areas, if you want to be a lifelong lifter, or we talk about the community, something that's important. So I'm curious your thoughts on that idea, Eric, that lifting, if we're really about it, or if we really derive pleasure, if we keep investing time at some point, I think some of that time has to be spent giving it back to others in some sort of capacity.
Man, I think that transcends everything.
Yeah.
Anything that you were really interested in as a human. If we talk about self-determination theory, SDT, as it's often called in the psychology realm, this is a pretty robust theory of how humans relate and how we find meaning, and meaning arguably being the most important thing in life to not necessarily just be happy. I would say happiness comes from finding meaning. You know, people are like, oh, I want to find meaning so that I'm happy. It's like, no, you want to find meaning so you feel purpose, and that there's a reason to be around. You don't want an empty happiness that is just kind of the placated distraction of watching TV all your life, Um, so anyway, one of the pillars of self-determination theory is human connection. There's competence, autonomy, and community is essentially the three pillars of STT, if I'm paraphrasing. And I think there's different phases in your life when you might emphasize one or more of the other or value them. And I think a lot of the times, sometimes you'll hear older individuals like shit on youth because they're a little more self-focused. I think what they're forgetting is that youth have community in spades, typically. They were just living at home with their parents not too long ago. They were just in high school. They're just in college. A lot of the times they have pretty deep connections they've had for as long as they can literally remember in community. They've had parental figures, siblings, schoolmates, and they're hooked in with the current social atmosphere. You don't hear 18-year-olds like, I don't understand social media. That's what your 48-year-old or 58-year-old, or sometimes in my case, your late 30s individual might say. And that's because we're not in current trends of how humans interact. So I think what you'll see with younger lifters, where they're a little more focused on themselves, is because they have those other aspects of meaning sorted. They're focusing on competence and autonomy, which is especially important when you have had very little autonomy your whole life. So it's not selfishness. It's not the hubris of youth. It's not this basically old man looking down on young people and getting mad and acting like he knows something better. It's just the position you are in life. And I think as you progress in your lifting career, it's going to become increasingly more important as you perhaps don't have the same level of community in your life. That's why people, that's not why. It's one of the reasons why people have children. It's one of the reasons why people celebrate togetherness during the holidays. We find meaning in knowing that we're understood and understand others and that there's a community. That's just being a primate, And, to go back to, even a bigger kind of meta about everything you were talking about, how people may or may not relate to what we're talking about depending on where they're at in their career. I can specifically remember when I wouldn't have wanted to relate to this back in, say, 2005, 2006, when I can literally remember saying to my wife, and it was kind of this, there was a little bit of pride in the statement, and there was also a little bit of fear in the statement. When I said, if I couldn't convince myself that one day I'd win the Natural Olympia, I don't know if I'd keep lifting. That to me scared me because I loved lifting. But at the same time, I think it spoke to how all-consuming my goal of being a really good natural bodybuilder was. And my career since then, for the past 13 years, because in 2006 is when I became aware of it, and that's when my first true off-season was. Before that, I was just lifting to get big and strong. I would say that since then, it has been this inversion, this dance of trying to keep those coals hot, to stay really, really motivated, to train really, really hard, and to still nurture the competitive aspect of me who does want to see how far I can take it. But then to also find the way to where that fear is not something that's a threat to me staying in it, to where if my all-consuming goal is to achieve something that is outside of my hands, that's dangerous, If in the end, there's only one person who wins at the highest level at any given time, and it's probably not going to be you. And I think you don't want to be the person who set out to squat 600 pounds when you were a young, skinny kid who could barely squat, one plate, and then be disappointed when you squat 550. That's kind of a tragic thing, and everyone around you is like, "What's wrong with you, man?" Like, I couldn't even imagine squatting that, and that's really, really impressive. You're stronger than 95% of the people on the planet, and then you're looking at Instagram or you're looking at your goal, and you have that thief of that enjoyment and fulfillment from your accomplishments. So I think to kind of go back to what you were saying, where there's different stages where you may or may not relate to this, it comes down to there being like, it's almost like, and I'm gonna make a super weird analogy because I just listened to another podcast about cave diving. So cave diving is some crazy crap. Right? You are doing scuba diving in an underwater cave, moving horizontally, sometimes exploring someplace that humans haven't been for millennia because it flooded for miles. So you have to find a way to deal with the bends, quote unquote oxygen poisoning as you come up too quickly when you're dealing with depressurized and pressurized air of different levels. And you also have to figure out a way to be down underwater for that long. So and one of the things they do is they use different gaseous combinations of things you can breathe, and it includes things like helium and oxygen and different combinations that have pros and cons. Some of them, if you use them, your energy expenditure changes and you lose more heat and you have risks of having issues related to hypothermia. Some of them, they are not as efficient as just simply delivering things, and maybe you can't go as long. But others are better for having to rapidly depressurize. So if you get in a bad situation, you can just head to the top and not have as much of a risk of getting the bends. The point being is that there are pros and cons to each one of these fuel sources. And it's almost like, if you put NOS in your car, yeah, you can go a little faster, but it might burn you out. And this might be totally false, so I apologize to any car aficionados and also scuba diving aficionados. I've probably said a lot of things that are false, but I hope the analogy holds true. That the fuel choice you use might be good for the short term, but it might burn out some long-term outcome. And I think you have to understand that the more fuel options you have, the better you will be able to select which one is appropriate for the various stage in your career. And I knew that there was nothing wrong with me being like, I've got to be like, I'm going to be number one. And I would go into workouts and I would do insane things. And I still do insane things, but they have purpose now. But I think the fact that the power of that convincing myself that I was going to be Natural Olympia one day and using that extrinsic motivation to hook into my intrinsic love for lifting propelled me forward and generated some incredible workouts. It got me through my first contest prep. It allowed me to stick to diets, practice my posing, and spend all this time learning and reading about bodybuilding because I wanted to become the best I could be. And that was great, but it also started to create a negative relationship with things. And that's when I started to nurture that more holistic kind of attitude that is now what you see today, where I have, four different sports I'm trying to compete in, these very different goals, spiritual meaning, artistic career, and intellectual pursuits all in the same thing, because it really allows me to stay in that state of keeping those coals warm and keeping that fire brewing. And when I go to the gym, I might as well be that dude who stepped in week 3 with a lot of excitement. And I think more than any type of optimal program I could be following, more than any type of specified long-term, high development, high performance plan. Like if I could cybernetically lay it out and go, what would be the best path for Eric Helms to get to the highest achievement of bodybuilding? I would never have been able to do that without having some type of way of nurturing that passion. And I don't know if the pathway I've led down myself has been the most optimal, but I know that I'm here and I freaking love it. And I'm 15 years in. So I think that's regardless of whether it's the optimal path. I think the non-negotiables, I've got to be passionate. And I think that's a perspective that I think, regardless of what fuel you're currently using and whether you're year 1 or year 30, you can probably relate to that. That for a commitment to last that long, you have to find a way forward.
Just one minor thing, because there's a lot of power there, Eric, where you said you might be incorrect about some of the things you stated as it relates to scuba diving. I want to correct you that, in fact, we're never correct. So you're incorrect, even positing that you were, in fact, incorrect at that moment, because of what we say here. I'm not going to say it's gospel. I know we've been talking about holidays, but it is the word, is what I'd say before I go on.
So actually, that was just a test.
Yeah.
So if when I said I'm incorrect, I knew that was an incorrect statement. Therefore, It was correct. But for the listener, that was a test of your cult membership.
Yep.
So 2 options right now: either you knew, aha, he was testing me, and you passed, or you did not, and you need to go flagellate yourself in the Iron Church.
Yeah.
And go train today.
Yeah. So,
even if it is closed for the holidays,
and it's your rest day. Yeah. Has anyone?
Yeah. Find a way forward. That was the message. So if that's a rock in the window of Planet Fitness, you do what you got to do.
You do what you have to do.
And I really hope that no one actually throws a rock through the window of Planet Fitness, or we might have to find new hosts.
Again, legal. That probably, if there's only one
I think
thing,
we need to reflect on that.
I don't even regret. You know what? I'm just gonna say I don't regret anything we've said on Iron Culture. There may have been some huge potential legal ramifications of through various combinations of words that we uttered, one or the other, because here's the thing, we're a united entity, myself and Eric. So if he says something, I might as well have said it myself. So I not only stand with him, we are one together, one of the same whole. So
stuck together.
Stuck together. The classic.
Classic cult film.
Yeah. Now, if everyone sticks around in this conversation, we will have some purple grape drink to pass around, some Kool-Aid, so to speak. It's going to have an interesting combination. It might be blackberry flavored. It's going to be an interesting combination, and you might feel different, or you might feel nothing at all after you consume it. But we like to think you'll derive a higher meaning. I do want to talk about RPE quickly, or the RPE of your lifting journey, to make an analogy where, I'm gonna nerd back with you, Eric, where you were saying the combination of igniting that fire within, where there is a flame within you, and sometimes if you hold on to it too long, if we talk about the concept, because we're all about that D&D, stay tuned, guys, in 2020 we're probably gonna videotape myself and Eric doing some LARPing just to provide some insight into what
I'm not
we do.
gonna LARP. Okay, we will play some tabletop role playing games, but listen. There is a caste system in the role playing community, and LARPers are at the bottom.
Yeah.
Tabletop role playing gamers. We only have one person below us, and it's LARPers, and we're not going to give up that second from the bottom spot. This is crabs in a barrel, and we're not touching the bottom.
I got you. Yeah. Right. We're Brahmin. They're the untouchables. I understand.
Absolutely.
Now, what I would say is that, like a blood mage or like anything else, where sometimes, and I think we're going to have a very interesting upcoming episode. I won't tease it, but someone that you said, Eric, I'm like, oh, that's a very good point. Sometimes tapping into that other level, let's say, where it could potentially, if you stay in it too long, it could be damaging, right? It could really mess with other variables outside of lifting, where you're too focused on it, unhealthy relationship with lifting, with food, a variety of different things. But there's that dedication, the next level, that hidden gear, that blood mage, when you tap into something within yourself, the fire. If you hold on to it too tightly, it could consume you, right? And it could really shift your paradigm of how you view things, where, again, as you said, if you want to squat 600 pounds and you started at 135 pounds and you only squat 550 pounds, man, you're going to be disappointed. But also at various times in your life where you're able to give that next level of intensity to what you do, there's a time and place for everything. I mean, I'm sure, obviously, when you're competing, when you're trying to get ready to enter the stage, it's like, before you go on stage, you're not thinking to yourself, I mean, I'm not going to speak for you. I'll let you talk. But before you compete, you're not thinking, all right,
Thank you.
Let's just be cool, calm, and connected, and let's just have fun, guys. It's like, yes, you want to have fun, but we came here with an intent and purpose, and that is to destroy everyone. There shall be no false idols other than the iron culture that exists and is not false and is always truthful. And so there's a time and a place for everything. And I think some of the young bucks, me seeing myself in that, and that's why I shared kind of that that anecdote of myself in 2013 with that deadlift. Like the deadlift, there was a 0% chance that thing was going up, but I was convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that I would complete it. And it only took 12 seconds and almost passing out, and a talk from Sean Kelly, who I respected greatly afterwards, for me to think to myself, is this really how I want to go about things? So I would say, just to go off on a tangent, one of the things that actually has helped me, or overall, because there's many lessons in the iron, and there's many things that relate outside of the iron that then come to reflect in the iron. When we talk about learning or giving back or rediscovering certain things, for 2019, I've taken upon myself, and we're going to be successful, because you listening to this, the listener, it's actually 2020 when it's going to be released, and we've already completed it. I have found overall in my life, I sometimes go through phases, and it's not a phase, Mom. This is just who I am. Where, I started off, I played a lot of sports growing up, got into some academic programs. I took those seriously. And then from there, I entered the workforce. And once I entered the workforce, some of the other things that I used to do, so some of the other passions, so let's say artistic pursuits or just reading for myself, I really enjoy learning. I really enjoy fiction and nonfiction. Some of those things fall by the wayside, where you go through phases. So it's almost like a periodized life. But often I try and focus on one primary thing to the detriment of others. So in the last 7-8 years, it's been a career, right? Or some semblance, whatever we might call this thing, posting irreverent captions on social media and earning money from it, monetary compensation. So almost a career, nothing sustainable, I'd say. But through that, trying to focus on that, But something this year I did, and I made it just a random goal, and I wouldn't recommend this, would be to read a book a week. There's nothing magical reading a book a week. If you don't read a book a week, it's completely fine. It's not like the world's going to end. But it basically meant a certain amount of time I would set out every single day to read, roughly working out to about 90 minutes to 2 hours. And so that would be about 300 to 400 pages per week. On average, some books would be longer, some would be shorter. There's a great book I read, Silk Roads, which was 700 pages. And so next week, read something a little bit shorter. But that ability, that time to set and reflect, where while you're reading, a lot of powerful things happen, where you're sorting subconsciously, I think, a lot of things behind the scene. But then you're kind of reframing and you're rediscovering certain things, or you're entering new worlds and new possibilities, and seeing those worlds open up before your eyes kind of made me think about my lifting journey in a weird way. And what I mean, what you said, Eric, I'm actually in some small way slightly jealous, because what you're doing, bro, right now is basically, I want to heal up and I want to do the damn thing myself, where you're like, yeah, man, I'm doing a little strongman, I'm doing a little weightlifting, and also, I'm focusing on aesthetics and I care about my strength. I'm like, yeah, no, dog, yeah, what I used to coin the athletic aesthetic lifestyle. Whoo. The ability to pursue different things, and the fact that it's not too late to do anything that we want, where it's like, for yourself, I said that same thing. I do like to derive some level of competence from the things that I do. And so for weightlifting, I think now, oh, I've been lifting for a decade, I'm a little achy, I'm tight. It is true that things don't move the way they would move if I first started out when I was 18 years old, fresh, right? And I would use that as an excuse. But that doesn't mean, once again, if you shift how you view things or why you do them, that you can't participate without an end outcome being, I want to be sick at this. And it's not saying that you won't, but sometimes, and I've been guilty of this on social media or on YouTube, the fame monster gets you, where, I have become in the lifting community, it's like, oh, like he's a natural lifter that's like decently strong, and he's someone that it's a repeatable process. Like if someone sees me do it, it's like, yeah, I could do that too. And so I kind of, in ways, how I viewed myself, I was carrying a torch. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like I could do this, and when people see this, they'll think, yeah, I could do that too. And that's what I want, man. I want you to believe that you're far more capable than what we thought previously. Okay. But then you become attached to that. Well, I'm kind of a strength guy. Well, I want to do these things. And you feel then your journey exists beyond you, and you start doing things not for the wrong reason, but you start thinking to yourself, oh, I know this will do well. Like a 600-pound deadlift, like that's just kind of a lift. People like it and respect it. And so you get caught in this trap and this cycle of doing things that maybe wouldn't be the thing that you derive the most personal fulfillment, but the thing that either you'll get the validation from, or if you attach then a business to it, well, hey, this is going to get likes. And so there's always kind of that demon in the back of your head. And for 2020, the thing I'm doubling down on, Eric, is actually just to do the damn thing that I love and find a way to convey it in such a way that others will feel that tangible, tactile, oh man, like this is fun. He's enjoying what he's doing. So when I saw you, bro, and when you said those things, and I hear you, where some people like specificity, like why are you doing farmers walks? When I saw you doing those things, I'm like, oh, he's on that. Yeah. I feel that, bro.
Yeah, I think, God, there's some really, really good stuff there. And I think the overarching theme that you expressed, and the most important part of that, and I think what I really want people to take away from
Follower
is reflection. And yes, LARPing. Yeah. Is self-awareness and reflection.
Yeah.
Because I think for a lot of people, all the things that you talked about go on in this background haze that they don't fully recognize. They don't see underneath the veil of their own motivations, and they just are doing things and reacting, and they're a victim to those mind games that you were discussing. And I was actually just very impressed by how well you could articulate, the pressures of being someone with a big YouTube channel, someone with who is seen a certain way, and someone with a mission statement. That there's financial pressure, there's business pressure, there's career pressure, there's the things you want to do in your personal life from your business that I know you have pressure from. And then even deeper than that, you derive your self-identity and meaning to some degree from the things you do. That's just human nature. And that can even affect little details that no one else even sees. And I'll give you one example. I remember when we were in Sacramento and you're dealing with, your back injury. And I did some Moss wrestling with Chip Conrad, and we were both like, I really don't think you should, but you identify as the guy who you'll hop in, you'll be the Iron Gamer at any point in time, whether it's Moss wrestling, pulling a deadlift, if you want to, come with me, we'll sprint, whatever.
Mhm.
And you were like, I've got an injured back. I objectively know I should not do Moss wrestling. But the fact that I'm also a bit of a counterculture person, you said I shouldn't do Moss wrestling right now. All that converged, and you basically didn't have any choice. You had to Moss wrestle.
Right.
And I mean, you beat some guy 10 pounds lighter than you who is, 2 days out. And I guess you can feel good about,
I pick
beating
weak
some
victims. Yes.
You did. You preyed on my weakness and won, and then limped away. And I was fine. I went on to then compete in another show, and you
Took
did
6 months off
for a couple months. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the point being is like I see that in you, and I think that speaks to how motivated and dedicated to you, and how there's so much importance to it. And that's where that self-reflection and that self-awareness, it becomes really, really important, because in that instance, you might have made a choice that you probably could objectively go, I probably shouldn't have done that wrestling. But the fact that you can identify that gives you the opportunity to change or make different decisions in the future. But without that self-awareness, without that reflection to gain that self-awareness, that never happens. And you just continually stumble down these same paths, and those stumbling blocks never become stepping stones. And I think that's what we want to get to. And unfortunately, life is not Dungeons and Dragons. In Dungeons and Dragons, when we're doing tabletop role playing, you have informed consent. Like you talked about being a blood mage. Another example, being a barbarian. You know that if you go into a barbarian rage, you're going to get these short-term boosts and benefits, but then there's going to be a period where you're more vulnerable afterwards. So I think just like a necromancer, you got to bring it back. You got to resurrect some of the things from the past and find reattachments to that passion that you had, so that you can strive forward, so that you can be that shining paladin of truth, and range through the forest, and make sure that you don't get backstabbed by a thief when your goals get subverted by your own inner turmoil. So I think it's really important to have that critical piece of self-evaluation, continual reflection, seeing who you are, what you are, and when, like you said, you're becoming a victim to the pressures of who you want to be, rather than simply being who you are. So I think, that's something I think that we're all struggling with at all different times. Because even when you are not a social media influencer, quote unquote, when you don't have a channel, I've talked to people who are literally absent on social media at all, but they have all of these beliefs that hold them back about what they should be doing. It's their own internal critic, or it's what they think other people expect of them, or what entrance into a community requires. And a lot of that is artificial. A lot of that is simply getting in the way, and it prevents you from exploring what your actual relationship with the iron could be.
Eric, at this time, because I'm going to dance it right
At this
back
time,
to you.
I'm going to eat an apple
Oh,
on camera.
that's so
And I want now rewind back to when you heard me eat the carrot, and compare the noises. And this is for your enjoyment, those who like the sounds of food.
Yeah, compare how it makes you feel, because I think a lot of people are going to find things out about themselves, and that's maybe one of the great themes in this episode, that they didn't previously know. Things that they might
That I'm
enjoy.
turned on by listening to someone eat an apple.
Yeah, and I'm gonna.
That's okay.
Eric,
I'm never going to yuck someone's yum. Go ahead, Omar.
I'm gonna take this one, because then I'm gonna ask you the question after, what's coming up, or what are some of the things you want to focus on. One of the things, throwing it now back to the community, because we're talking and we have the community. This has been such a cool journey where basically by the time individuals listen to this episode, we're just recording it basically 2 weeks in advance, nothing crazy. But by the time they listen to the episode, and I was going to wait to tell you privately, but now I'm going to tell you publicly, because just like a marriage proposal, it can't possibly go wrong. We are about to hit, without my YouTube views or anything like that. So between our own YouTube, the Spotify, and then also iTunes and the various other platforms, 1 million total downloads inside of a year, which is pretty damn cray-cray. It means we get, Eric, over 20,000 downloads per episode, and we're not being attached just to the metrics, not to the numbers, but what I find interesting is that the amount of people listening per week continues to increase. The pause of words that we hear kind of boosts us forward, and also kind of assures us that the message that we set out with Iron Culture of history, science, culture, there are individuals that want to hear what we have to say, or the guest in particular that we want to bring on. And I want them to know, and I'll let Eric reflect too, that we're not going to take it for granted. That one, we're never going to do silly ass shit on this podcast. This is actually, so we're going to use that line, when people say giving value, Eric, this is a passion driven project where I think if you begin something with financial motives, there's always a financial consideration. That's not a terrible thing, right? But with this, it's like, hey, Eric, when we had that talk, you came down in 2018, and we hit it off. The chemistry was there. Aus, who was there, said it. He said
in the house.
Aus in the house was mesmerized. He said, this is good. And I said, Aus, when I ask you a question, then you can. But he said that, and so I thought, and it's actually exceeded expectations. But what I want listeners to know is that we're doubling, tripling, quadrupling. We're going all the way, quintupling. I'm not going to say the next one because they might misunderstand what I say. It sounds a certain way, Eric. The next one that starts with an S, but this is a children friendly.
Let's just say, if he says the next one, it might make you feel like this.
Right. That sounded juicy right there. We're doubling down. And what that means is we already have planned a lot of what we think are going to be great episodes. We also want to expand in small ways the content that we do. And that's why we'll make another episode and we're going to talk about this. But there might be some developments on the YouTube channel with some of the things that we do. So if you're not on the YouTube channel, go ahead and check it out. But our vision, and I'll let Eric also properly describe it. One of the things that we want to do, perhaps for 2021, is that we want to bring the culture to the masses. There is a little known fitness brand by the name of Rogue Fitness, I believe they're called. And they had a fantastic series. Eric was the one that hit me to going over lifting culture. So they'd go to various parts of the world, chronicling lifting culture from that area, the origins, and it was very well done. I think we don't take endorsements because, again, passion-driven project. I think, and Eric, I'll let you finish on this, that Rogue would probably be a suitable partner for us for some of the things potentially that we would like to do, where we would like to, maybe do a little documentary or maybe travel around in 2021 at some point in the future, investigating lifting culture. And as Eric said, being an amateur historian, I would classify for antiquity, for ancient history and other parts outside of lifting. I would say I am a little bit of an amateur historian. So united, we're two amateurs trying to go pro. But I think we could take the show on the road. And I think the opportunity of working the synergy with something like a Rogue Fitness, and we say that because there's a prior indication they're interested in this, could be a powerful combination where there'd be individuals that we would interview, and Eric would know the appropriate ones, or athletes, researchers, just a variety of different things, content that we'd be able to produce that would be wholly unique. And I think we're situated in such a way that we're them guys. Eric, like we're the people that we'd be able to host the damn thing, take it on the road, and present it in such a way that I think we could bring it to the masses.
And even if we're wrong, we're going to do it anyway, because you will be the Dunning to my Kruger, and these two amateurs, when 1 + 1 equals 0.5. Yeah. Well, no, that would be that we're better together than alone, which I think is true. But we don't know if we're wrong. Right. But we're going to go for it. And I think Rogue's done some really cool stuff. For those who aren't aware of what Omar's talking about, they have the Legend series where they've talked about Paulon, they've talked about Eugene Sandow. These are just free things you can watch on YouTube, little mini documentaries. They have longer ones like Full Sturker, that's about the Icelandic stone lifting culture. And they also have one about the Basque stone lifters in Europe. And they've got more too. But anyway, I think, Rogue has done a great job. They sponsor the Arnold. They've gotten heavily involved with CrossFit, and they make equipment, and small little up-and-coming company if you haven't heard of them. But anyway, we just thought, originally when we set out to do this, like Omar said, it was a passion project. And that came out of our inability to figure out how to monetize iron culture. Right. I couldn't even say it with a straight face. So yeah, like we, I think our goal is to try to make some kind of positive difference with iron culture. And I think, partnership and exposure to more, and actually getting out and doing it, instead of just armchair talking about it and philosophizing, and really connecting people with more actors in the iron culture. I think that's what we really want to do. So this will probably be coming to you in 2021, which will be technically next year by the time you listen to this, even though we're recording it at the end of 2019.
Right.
We plan to do the Iron Culture Tour. We're taking it on the road, in the air, planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yep.
Scooters, probably a Vespa while we're in Italy. And we plan on really trying to get a lot of unique voices with unique perspectives on history, science, and culture on Iron Culture, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, and Eric, I just want to say that's a great reference right there, planes, trains, and automobiles, because I am the
Great
John
movie.
Candy. I'm the John Candy to your Steve Martin. And I don't say that because I'm Canadian. It's because I have a significantly higher body fat percentage than you. And there's a risk at any time on our tour, the Iron Cult tour, that we might need to go to a hospital. Like I might need immediate medical intervention. So there's kind of that danger component. And so there's other things that we want to do, and maybe if you're listening, the idea of some speaking engagements, let's say, and we'll unveil that at the appropriate time. But we're gonna take it on the road, and we're gonna meet the people. And what I think is cool, because what I know about Eric, no joke. One, I think you'd be a fantastic co-host for this thing and the way that we envision it, but also because you participate in it and you take an interest. So I'm just thinking like the Husafell Stone. We're not going to lift it, but we're going to try and we're actually going to lift it together is what we're going to do.
Speak for yourself. We were going to...
Eric's going to remember that. And as he herniates, I'm just joking, technique doesn't matter. As he picks up the Husafell Stone, and he's like, his whole body's shaking. It's like an unheard of Herculean feat for like at the body weight that you are, where it's like, it's never been done. I'm making up these stats, but it's never been done by anyone below 300 pounds. But Eric's like shaking, his entire body's convulsing, and he's lifting up, and he's like, you said I couldn't do it, right?
You said I had no chance.
No chance at all. I think it'd also be, so I think it'd be a combination of what you see before you or what you hear, which is it's informative. It's potentially entertaining. Again, we think it's entertaining. Everyone else is like, please stop doing this. Why are you guys still here? And we're like, we're not going anywhere. And so it would just be something that is not currently done in the lifting community, because there is, Eric, the overall fitness IQ has certainly increased. And there's a lot of people communicating, great basic information, in if it was 2011 right now, and we started talking about macros, everyone would have their mind blown. But there's been so much room covered that depending upon where you are in the lifting community, it's like, man, I've heard that shit so many times. It's like, but where have you seen these shows? So picture Anthony Bourdain, R.I.P. And then maybe something along the lines of Matty Matheson, Dead Set on Life, where it has a little raunchy element, it has, a little entertaining element. Am I going to have a heart attack at any point in 2021? Who knows? Because quite frankly, it's probably going to happen, which is why I'm going to keep my shirt on. But that's what we want to bring to the people in 2021.
I'm excited, and apparently we know which of the Blues Brothers you will be, given the constant heart attack references, and the John Candy references. And I'm a fan of them all, and I'm actually relieved to hear that you're probably going to die.
Yeah,
that sounds bad.
yeah.
But because I know there will be a point where I don't want to do this anymore, where I'm tired of you. But I know that point will come after you've killed yourself from either the abuse of cocaine or your relationship with food.
And I'm going to go even deeper. That's why I'm going to do it, to save you, because I know you can't quit.
So kind.
And my notes just, I did it for you, and you're like, oh my God. Way to go, Omar.
Such a good guy, and I don't feel guilty at all.
yeah, I'm sure this is going to have no potential ramifications in my life moving forward.
I will not need therapy.
Yeah. Eric, let me ask you this question, bro. Because you reflected on your journey. What are some of the things that you hope to bring in 2020? Like, what does the future hold in the immediate next 365 days for Eric, personally, professionally, content-wise? Is there anything you're like, hey, guys, like, P.S., I'm doing another PhD. You said amateur historian, and I just want you to know it's not going to be amateur for much longer.
Well, I have actually considered, although I am not going to. It's just funny that you said that, because I've literally joked about it, and you should have seen the look on Barb's face of considering doing like a sports history PhD. I'm not going to do it. All right, get off my back,
Eric. I could say so. I joked, but I'm not being funny now when I say this. I predict within the next 15 to 20 years, you'll have another degree. Let's just say degree. So let's not say, but I think PhD under your belt. I think you can't help yourself in a good way.
I have a problem, and I may be an addict to pieces of paper on the wall.
Yeah.
So we shall see. I don't think it's not a bad bet. Let's just put it that way. But at least in the immediate term, to answer your question, my 2020 goals, I think it's funny. Things are coming full circle. I got into the iron game as a psychotic athlete, and now I'm getting back into nurturing being a psychotic athlete again, which I'm really loving. The PhD got finished a couple of years ago. Oh, soon to be 3 years once we get into the end of 2020. And, I've got a little more stability in my life than being the struggling up and coming trainer trying to figure out a way to move to New Zealand and make it work financially. And I'm at a point now where I really want to dedicate more time to my athleticism. So I've been enjoying getting into strength sport. And the goal for 2020 is, number one, don't break. And number two, compete in a full strongman event. So the two that I've done have been partial events, not the full, 4 or 5 event medleys. And then number 3 and 4 is to compete in both weightlifting and powerlifting again and total more than I did previously. And, the good news about having those multiple goals is that even if I get the majority of them or some of them, it'll still be good. Like if I compete in all of them, don't get hurt, and don't happen to total more than I did previously in powerlifting, hey, not bad. That's still a solid passing grade. So anyway, we're probably looking at a first quarter kind of mid-year foray into weightlifting and strongman, and then putting meets towards the end of the year on the calendar so I have more time, just because I've spent a lot more time as a powerlifter getting closer to my ceiling. So my peaks don't get quite as high relative to where they need to be past the previous peak. So if I'm on a total 620 or more as a 93 kilo guy, very, very competitive in the 2012 USAPL Raw Nationals. Actually, not even really, but at least I'd qualify back then. Then yeah, that's gonna be the strategy. As far as everything else, I think really want to see 3D Muscle Journey continue to expand and find more ways to help lifters get good content, helping the folks out in the drug-free lifting community, and of course, man, Iron Culture with you, buddy. I want to take it further. And now, out of a pure sense of obligation, and I don't really care what you have to say, what about you?
I don't have any goals, man.
I love it.
That's it. No,
that's the Omar I love and know.
What I was going to ask you real quick is, out of curiosity, with, let's say, what you know with your strength, would you compete in a New Zealand meet? And if so, it's what, 8 million individuals versus 300 million or 300 plus? How would you do? Do we have a chance, boys, on the podium in New Zealand? What's going on with that? Just tell me that quickly.
Well, just for historical record, I've actually placed second at New Zealand Nationals back when powerlifting was a little less competitive.
Yep.
But no, New Zealand actually has grown a lot. Strength sport has grown worldwide, which we've seen. Yep. So just to give people perspective, I did Auckland Champs. For the record as well, there's about 4.5 million people in New Zealand, not 8.
Oh.
But that's surprisingly small, right?
Yeah.
And Auckland is the biggest city. It's got about 1.5 million in the greater metropolitan area. So Auckland Champs is a NZPF competition. It's been going on for a long time for the regional Auckland region Department of Redundancy Department. So that's the APA, Auckland Powerlifting Association. And when I did it back in 2013 for the first time, there was myself and 2 others in the open 93 kilo class. The last time I did it, which I want to say was 2015, there were 10. That was probably, and I did actually win Auckland Champs Open 93s, which, by the way, winning a local meet in powerlifting means nothing. You just check yourself on open powerlifting, or you check your Wilks score, or now your IPF points, and you see where you're at. So that's not necessarily something I'm bragging about, but it's more just so people understand the level of competitiveness and then in the competition. My total now would have not won Auckland Champs any of the subsequent years, and it would still qualify for me for New Zealand Nationals, but I would probably place maybe top 5, but towards the bottom. So there are people totaling over 700 in the 93s for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
And as there should be. So that's cool. Weightlifting is pretty damn good in New Zealand. There's some damn good weightlifters. My best total I ever had was in the old 94 kilo class. I totaled 200, which is a D grade, which is the lowest grade you can get as a weightlifter, but it's still a grade.
Hey.
If you have less than that, I wasn't grading. So now the weight classes have shifted. There's 89 and 96. So I'm not quite sure what makes the most sense because I'm like 94, 95 right now.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting because the New Zealand strongman has also grown a lot. And for those who didn't listen to our strongman episode, there is an under 90 kilo class. The next one's under 105, which is probably I can do the events in some cases, not at the national level, but at the regional level comps. But I probably wouldn't zero anything, but I'd be more competitive in the 90s, and it's a shorter jaunt down than it is up. Yeah.
Now, Eric, I'm not at all trying
Omar.
to deflect and not talk about myself. I do have one more question for you, and that question would be, how does it feel that it's your own hand that has wrought your own destruction? And what I mean when I say that is that you have been one of the pivotal pioneers, we're going with alliteration here, for the lifting community. You've enhanced the overall knowledge. You've put out so much fantastic content that probably directly has helped individuals become stronger, more muscular, leaner, and ergo, better lifters that in some capacity you're competing against. So you're basically training indirectly or directly through working with them personally or through your teachings, people to become better, and then you compete against them, and now they're super strong. Like, how does that feel to bring about your own destruction is my last question.
It's tough. So for people who know anything about math, basically what Omar is saying is that my influence into the lifting world and my intense study that originally started with trying to be a better lifter myself, while it has increased the slope of my progress, it has increased the slope of everyone else's progress to a greater degree. Here's a great example. I remember back before I was anyone of notoriety to any degree. I don't think 3D Muscle Journey was around yet. I was looking at the requirement to compete in the Arnold. It was a 375 Wilks, which might sound incredibly low, but we're talking like 2010 or 11 or 12 or something like that. And when I was just on the cusp of hitting a 375 Wilks and going, oh, next year I'll hit it and I can hit, apply. And if you wait around and you can apply, you can get your stuff in early. Then it'll just be an honor to get smashed on by all these other good lifters. That next year it went up to 400, and I went, oh! And then for the next 2 to 3 years, I was working up, and I remember I got to a 394 Wilks, and guess what happened the next year?
Went up
435.
Yeah.
And just to give you an example of how I am still improving, yet my slope is not quite yet is not the same as everyone else's. That was back in I think 2014. So let's just say I don't have a 435 Wilks yet. I hope one day I get a 435 Wilks, and I'm sure at that point I would need a forklift to compete in the Arnold.
So it feels good, is what I'm hearing.
Correct. I'm so glad that I've helped everyone to my own detriment, and that altruism has proven to be my device.
Yep.
I think might need to think about my life philosophies a little more.
So I'm not a professional like Eric, so I could just give my own personal opinion from seeing subscribers over time. It's like, hey man, I love your content. Like there's literally some individuals that I met in 2014 when I was first on a powerlifting, or let's say strength lifting for the individuals, like, you haven't competed, that, they're squatting 365. And so if I know individuals that are deadlifting in the 700s, one guy's a 93 kilo now, Canadian lifter, a bunch of individuals that have just completely blown past any of my best lifts, and like, oh man, like your content really inspired me. And I say fuck you. Like I'm not about that. Like, I don't have to be nice to you. If you see me in the gym, don't look at me. I probably will try and sabotage your journey. So, I'm
going to steal your shirt.
Yeah, it's great. You've stolen my thunder, and I don't appreciate it. And you're now my mortal enemy. Stop extending your olive branch. It's not going to work. Jim, you're listening. It's not going to work. Okay, I meant what I meant what I said when I said it in person. You thought because I said it with a smile, I was joking. I wasn't. But
hey, on a positive note though, and I will not name the poster because I don't remember who it was, but I won't name the person they're referring to because I don't want to out them. But this is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
someone was reflecting on their perspective in 2012 and 2013 when they were following a popular fitness personality. And they said, 7 years ago when I was a teenager and I was following this content, I was convinced this person was not natural. And through some of the content that you guys have shared and everything I've been exposed to, I started to question that. And not only that, what was the nail in the coffin for me was that I actually achieved the physique and some lifts that I would have expected would have only been possible, not being natural later in my own career, just 7 years later. So I think it's really interesting. I think that in many times, just the belief and kind of removing some of your own barriers in front of you unlocks potential that was always there. And we hold ourselves back by fear of failure or fear of success sometimes, depending on the kind of individual motivations. And that was a really cool thing to read, just that someone... It's also a good reminder, just if you're one of those people who's really annoyed by like the natty or not nonsense, like, oh, this person couldn't be drugged. Like that person 8 years from now might be looking back going, wow, I was a really belligerent 18-year-old who really thought he knew a lot about lifting just because I was frustrated with my progress after a year and a half, So,
look, all I could say for a lot of individuals, it's like, I'll see you in 5 years. And let's see if you, hey, one thing I'll say to you, man, it's like, keep lifting, keep making progress, remain healthy, get your sleep, and talk to me in 5 years. And let's just see if your perspective at all changes. Oh, what's that? It did? Interesting. Yeah.
And it's a lose-lose for you because either your perspective does change, which means you got gains, but Omar's right. Or you didn't make gains, and then why are you alive?
Right. And enter the purple grape drink. That's why we take care of it for you, so you don't have to do it yourself because you're too cowardly, I do want to say that just real quick, I think those are very admirable goals, and I'll echo you. It remains to be seen how lifting shapes up in 2020. I finished, you got in competitive shape. You got in the best shape of your life. You're super dedicated. You dieted for over 24 weeks. I did 10 weeks and I lost, 18 pounds, and I'm now below 20% body fat. So we shared very similar journeys. The end outcome.
I actually dieted for 34 weeks, but that's
yeah. Who's counting? Who's counting? So
who counted exactly?
Yeah.
Hey, but you know what, Omar? I want to ask you the question that is on the tip of everyone's burning lips.
I need a used conditioner. I know.
That's not a question. That's a statement, and it's true, and we've talked about it. But the question that is on the edge of everyone's mind is, when are you going to become a competitor? When are you going to step in the arena of any discipline of Iron Game?
Yeah.
When are you going to do strongman, which I think, no bullshit, you would actually be very good at, because for your body weight, the strongest lifts you have are picking crap off the ground and putting crap over your head. Yeah. You've got an Olympic lifting background. You've got a powerlifting background. I'd say arguably, pound for pound, you're probably the best at the deadlift. You also have a very strong bench press. However, your overhead press, I think, is even more impressive than your bench. And I have seen you're just a pretty good, I think you have a base level of athleticism that would transfer well and would be well suited towards competing in strongman. And it seems like you're pretty strong even as you drop body weight. I think under 90 kilos, maybe even under 80 kilos. I'm not sure the Canadian scene and what the weight classes are. But man, I bet Alan Thrall, I bet Joey would both agree with me. I think you would do well in strongman. So when are you going to get in the arena? That's what we want to know. When are you going to do a meet, weightlifting, powerlifting, or a strongman show? Any of the three.
It's called Classic Physique 2020. What's up? No, so Eric, it's so funny you say that. I was going to wait to drop the hammer on you, but I'll do it publicly.
Hammer me.
Just hammer me, bro. So it remains to be seen. I want to enjoy the process. I'm actually going down in January because there's a new business venture with Alan Thrall. And for a week, I'm going to be training strongman. And I'm going to see how it goes and how much I enjoy it. There's actually also someone, shout out to Zach, who trains at Fortis, who I'm going to start doing a little bit of the log press just to see what's up. And I would compete because right now I finished my cut at 179.2 pounds. I woke up today at 180. And that's 5 weeks gone. I haven't shifted.
Nice.
The weight class would be 175 pounds, so that'd be nothing to get down there.
Water cut.
Yeah, and so I do think for strength levels, I would be unhappy in powerlifting unless I could pass my old lifts. And so here's what I'm thinking right now. Remain obviously injury free, healthy, keep that moving forward. Cool, 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 cool. I do want to lean down with you. That's my big goal for 2020 is, as you said, and Eric, I respect the hell of his bluntness, which is just honestly the reality is that I got down to about 180 pounds. And so I got leaner than I have been in the last 6 years. But he's like, man, if you lost, whatever the amount, whatever the quantity would be, 8, 10 more pounds, you would really notice that would be the next level. And I want to do that next level. And so I do have a aesthetic goal that's very important. With powerlifting, I would be unhappy if I couldn't surpass some of the gym numbers that I could routinely hit. And that would require a certain amount of dedication, discipline. And I think it would take me around 6 months. And that would be a journey that, unless I hit those numbers, truthfully, I don't know if I could just enjoy the journey on that. So I gotta circumvent that. Strongman is the one I was thinking of because weightlifting would still take a while. I actually thought in my head that if I start incorporating it just a little bit, so let's say really start cooking it around spring. I thought you said you might be in America at some point, is that we would select an event where I definitely, because I actually asked Alan this and he told me there's type 1 competitions, type 2, because he posted one about California's strongest man. I'd want to do a type 1 and I'd want it so that there is the 80 kilo class, but we could do so you would compete in like the next weight class above. I would compete in the weight class below if you plan on being in America and it's before the first half of the year. And we could do that and that'd be an Iron Culture celebration. Boom, hammer.
All I will say is that's very intriguing.
Yeah.
And I'm excited, and I think that's awesome that you're going to do it. And I think if the thing is though is we got to commit if we pull the trigger on it.
No.
We can't commit on a bonus episode because everyone's got to be listening.
Yeah.
So we will discuss this in a future episode, and we will make the commitment, or you will never hear us discuss it again.
We just never bring it up. I tell you off camera, I'm like, yeah, all I said was bullshit, Eric. No, but we'll definitely talk because I think that'd just be fun. And hey, once again, Rogue Fitness. I know Rogue Fitness listens. Okay, Dwayne. I don't have to call him The Rock, but there's numerous celebrities, fitness influencers that listen to the podcast. And so I know Rogue Fitness is listening right now, and they're just jumping at the opportunity to endorse Iron Culture. So I forget us going on a journey, just documenting us, Eric. Just make the journey just about us. I know they want to do it.
I love that you can tell this is a genuine knowledge of Rogue Fitness listening when we don't say a name of someone at Rogue. We just kind of talk about them as the ambiguous they.
The corporate conglomerate known as Rogue Fitness.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. The AI that runs that business that listens to our podcast.
Oh, man. No, I think this is probably a good point to wrap it up because this is basically just a reflection, a thank you, and then a realignment of Iron Culture. And so not that I had low expectations, but you know what they say, Eric, set no expectations, receive no disappointments. And so that's what I did. And Iron Culture has done the damn thing and I've been loving it. So I just want to thank everyone for listening. Eric, do you want to say anything in closing?
Yeah, I just want to say this has become something really a lot cooler and just a different and more complete and more satisfying direction than I could have anticipated when we sat down to do this. It really feels like we're doing something that has value, and I think it's just the right time in both of our lives, really, in our relationship with the iron, and it's very cool to be able to share it with everyone. So in all sincerity, I hope everyone has had a happy holidays because this is going to come out. I wish you the best in 2020. And hopefully with Omar and I, you can also not get hurt, stay in love with the iron, succeed in your goals, and listen to us talk about the success or failure of that, but still finding a way forward despite that existential dread every Monday.
Yeah, we're just gonna, as you said, reverse engineer meaning when something terrible happens. We wanted it to be that way. Like we both commit to the strongman competition, and then we don't do it. It's better that way. We're wiser. It's like Spinal Tap. Last thing I'll say, Spinal Tap after their career goes off the rails and they play smaller and smaller venues, and essentially their tour gets canceled. Derek Small says, we're lucky to be in this position, like we should be thankful that we're in this position. It's like, wow, that is some mental gymnastics, my friend. But
History, science, culture, and rationalization after the fact.
Yeah, post rationalization. I want to thank everyone for listening. You can help us. So listen, you are a cult. You can participate in this action right here by leaving a rating and a review on iTunes, because that is where the algorithm, we fight the algorithm, we fight the chaos. That's where you get to tell what's up. We're taking down Sex with Emily. Don't read into that statement. Don't just take it at face value. But we're coming for all the other health and fitness. Why am I saying these words? Health and fitness podcasts out there, and we're really just gonna drill down on everything. I really should just stop talking. But on YouTube, you could give a rating and review if you want in the comments section instead, and we'll do our best to respond. We're back every single Monday. Here's to 2020.